Also, just so you know, we are having a big event this weekend at Casa Latina. I think they might still be looking for a few first and second years for Friday and Saturday. Go ahead and contact Carlos Valdez in my class or talk to me if you have any questions. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with Juan, who seems to here he is, who is, I believe, a fifth-year medical student and officer in LMSA, which is a Latino Medicine Student Association. And he's just going to talk about kind of the medical student kind of perspective on this.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Cool. So I'm happy to be here. As I said, I'm a fifth-year medical student. I'm dual MD, MHA, and current student. Finished my MHA this May. I've been working with Latinos for a long time. And what I'm going to say is first of all this, Latinos comprise a very diverse group of people. I myself am Mexican American, and even in Mexico, there's a huge diversity of Mexicans. If you're from one part of the country, you just go a couple of states over, it's a whole different culture, a different kind of music. One thing I will say now, salsa music is not something that's indigenous to Mexicans, so just a pearl to give you guys. So if you're trying to connect with Latinos or Mexicans, don't say, oh, you must, the event salsa, because that is not cool. That is not us. And so they asked me to talk about kind of the patients that we see both in the hospital, in clinic, and or at Casa Latina. So working with patients, for example, like Casa Latina, or at other clinics, or like, for example, Harborview, have a lot of social issues that complicate their medical comorbidities. For example, we saw a client just recently who had chest pain at rest, unstable angina, radiating to the axilla, nausea, nauseous. The chest pain got worse with exercise or just walking down the street. Shortness of breath, smoked, for 50 years, a pack of cigarettes for 50 years. And we told this patient, like, hey, we think you should go to the emergency room. And the client was like, that's all good, but I can't. And it's like, no. Like, we really think you should go to the emergency room. Like, matter of fact, here's a medical student. We'll take you to the emergency room, and we'll make sure you get the fast track, to get care. You get an EKG, you get stent, like, you need care right away. And this client was like, that's all good, but I can't go. And we're like, no, sir. Like, you are a high risk for a heart attack. It's like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we need to go to the ER right now. And this client was like, I'm sorry, but I gotta go to work. I gotta work today, it's Saturday, and I gotta work on Sunday. I will go in on Monday to the ER. So, as you can imagine, we live in the United States, and this person, this human being who's here, cannot go to the ER to get treated for care because of the fact of the matter is that if they don't eat, if they don't work, they don't eat that day. So a lot of our clients that are either agricultural, that work in agriculture, like farm workers, or clients that work in the inner city, are very desperate for food and shelter, for just the basic necessities. And oftentimes they put their care as third on the list of things that they need to get taken care of. We have another client that I work with who ended up having symptoms of cough, of pneumonia. So he had a pneumonia, but it went untreated for several days until he finally went to the ED where he passed out. And according to the client, he woke up several weeks later in the ICU on a ventilator and was discharged with kidney failure requiring dialysis for at least another 2 or 3 months, with unknown prognosis of whether or not he'll get his kidney function back. So this client was on dialysis. However, this client was, I guess you could psychologically really scarred for many reasons. The first reason is that this client is undocumented, and this client has very little social support structure here in Washington. He has no family here. And the fact of the matter is that if you were to want to go home for some reason, it would be a death sentence, because for a lot of Latinos in countries like Mexico, Guatemala, or Honduras, anybody on dialysis, if you can't afford to pay for it, you don't get dialysis. So it would have been a death sentence. So he can't even go back to see his family. So now he's actually forced to be here if he wants to live. Secondly, dialysis, if you have papers, or if you're a citizen, then it's covered by Medicare. However, if you're undocumented, dialysis is not covered by Medicare. However, the reason this client's able to get dialysis here, paid for here in Seattle and Washington, is because Medicaid is able to cover the cost of his dialysis care. So he's kind of trapped to cities that have progressive laws to cover dialysis for undocumented. And it's hard. Secondly, this client was also really afraid to tell his peers. It was a big secret, this person's on dialysis. But he didn't want to tell his peers because he was afraid that his peers wouldn't want to go to work with him. Because he was afraid that they wouldn't want to work with him because he would fall behind, not be as productive as everybody else. So isn't that crazy? You've been in the ICU because you had a cough that you didn't take care of because you were either afraid of the medical bills, afraid of overt racism in the emergency room, or you just didn't have time to go because, again, you had to find work where you were at work. And now that led to hospitalization in the ICU and kidney failure, requiring dialysis. And you can't go home and you can't tell your friends about it because you're afraid that the fact of the matter is that they find out they won't want to go work with you. Is that crazy? Am I talking about the United States here? Yes, I am talking about the United States. I'm talking about Washington, Seattle, Washington. There's also something else that you guys should know about Latinos is that, not generalized, but usually the great thing about the Latino community, which is a great positive, is that there's a lot of social bonds. So Latinos are very family oriented. There's lots of extended families. And so when a Latino is in the hospital, they're never alone. Like I have yet to have a patient who's been hospitalized who's been by themselves. There's either a parent, a sibling, a cousin, a friend, an uncle, neighbor's friend's cousin who went to school with somebody back in Mexico somewhere or something like that. They're never alone. So there's a huge support. With that, something that you guys should know is that when it comes to making medical decisions, it's usually a group thing. Like the group makes a decision about a client. I know you guys are dentists. I don't exactly know what that entails in terms of making big decisions about dental care. But in medicine, for example, I had a patient who was basically intubated, had tuberculosis, had recurrence of lymphoma, and basically he was palliative care. And the decision was, do we withdraw care? The decision goes to the wife as a designated, as a DPOE, the designated person who has the legal right to withdraw care. However, the mom or the wife wanted to get her kids' input on what they should do. However, the medical team, and I'm going to say which medical team or who it was like, no, the wife needs to make a decision right now about what needs to be done. The wife was like, no, I need to wait for my kids, all 8 of them, to come here so we can make a group decision. However, the medical team was really frustrated because this would take several days because some of his kids were in Mexico, which required an emergency visa to come to Seattle to then have a group discussion about what's going to happen with medical care. So understand if you guys are going to have a big decision in dentistry and your client is reluctant to give you a straight answer in your private practice or whatever, it might be because sometimes it requires a kind of a group or a family decision, and which is, I think, a good thing. Let's see, what else can I tell you about my experiences with Latinos? They're awesome, they're resilient, funny. If you can speak Spanish, they'll tell you some great jokes. Dental care is one of the last things that we take care of. Number one, even for me, the citizen, UW medical student, it's really hard to get insurance for dental care, especially if you're undocumented. It gets really expensive, which you guys do is super pricey. Same thing with medicine, and it's something that's often neglected. Most, if not all, the clients in Casa Latina, correct me if I'm wrong, have some kind of dental issue, like something. I would say over half of them are missing some tooth or another because of the neglect. And I would say in terms of the Latino community, a huge proportion of the Latino community have excess cavities, poor hygiene, need of some dental care that isn't being addressed. Because the fact is that Latinos are the highest ethnic group with the highest percentage of uninsured. The highest uninsured demographic is the Latino community. So lack of insurance, again, because of the state of opportunities in this country that may or may not exist, are unable to obtain dental care for their everyday needs.
You talked about the trust that a lot of Latinos might not have for doctors here versus doctors there. What sort of speak to that?
You received the question?
So you asked me to talk about the trust that Latinos may or may not have here because of demographics of, say, the medical system. So let's see if I can think of an example, an helpful example, and a good example. So I just had a patient recently from Mexico who had an unfortunate outcome and ended up passing away. However, the family was really grateful because when you treat your clients with respect and give them time, then that's going to show. And I think any human being who's sick, who's getting cared for, what they want is respect and a little bit of time to get some mutual understanding. And if you show that, then I think anybody, if someone's taking care of me who spoke German, I would not trust them. I would, if they respected me, who tried, somebody tried to communicate with me in my language, try to understand my cultural background, explain things to me the right way. And if you do those things, it's all gravy. But if you fail to do those things, then it's going to be awful. Nobody's going to want to work with you. Nobody's going to believe you. Nobody's going to follow your recommendations. And an example of a bad thing, let's see. My clients always tell me about awful things that happen to them in medicine. Oh, here's one. So I was in a medical system, not in Seattle, and there was this provider just complaining about this client. This patient was going to be discharged AMA against medical advice. So just on and on about this patient being readmitted, it's awful, this non-compliant, this and that. So I'm like, hey, what's going on here? Like, what's cracking? And like, oh, this patient's going to be AMA. Let me go talk to him. I go talk to this client, monolingual Spanish speaker. And I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, why are you leaving? He's like, I'm tired of this. Like, why are you tired of this? So all they tell me is to just relax, descanse. For 5 days, nobody bothered to get an interpreter, but everybody for some reason feels, I'm gonna say everybody, a lot of people feel that just because they took high school Spanish, that they can somehow communicate with somebody in a different language. So all they would say is descanse. So this patient's like, I'm gonna get sick just resting. A lot of Latinos do not like to sit down and just rest. We're really active. We need to work, we need to do something, or else we feel like we get sick. So anyways, so I'm like, just give me a second, I'll be back. I looked at his medical chart. So he was in for heart failure. Basically, the backstory is this patient was picking apples. Because of fatigue, edema, heart failure, he was unable to pick apples. So for a job or for income, he started recycling cans. Walking around town recycling cans to make money. He couldn't do that anymore because it was heart failure. What happened? He passed out. Ends up in the ED, gets admitted for heart failure, gets ballistics. It turns out he has AFib. He needs a arrhythmia. So what are they going to discharge him with? Warfarin, which is a leptin, a beta blocker, and Lasix. Now, that would be all good, right? As part of medical management. However, the reason why he hadn't left is because they were going to pronounce his instructions in Spanish for his medication regimen. Now, that would also be pretty cool, right? Pronouncing instructions in Spanish. You feel like you did a good job. Look at me, I'm going above and beyond for my patients. All right, super doctor, super whatever. Turns out, when I asked this guy, I was like, hey, why don't you do me a favor? Can you sign your name for me? And guess what? He signs his name with an X. Because this person cannot read or write in either language. So when doing more biopsy into his chart, he had a long history of non-compliance with the clinic with his medications. Yet nobody had bothered to ask or to just get any insights about this person's literacy. People assume that everybody can read and write, which is actually not true. Even in this state, I think the literacy rate, if you do Google literacy rate, King County or Washington State, there's percentages of people who can't process information through the written language, whether or not they're native speakers or not. And I think it's like 2%, and it varies by county. I think one of the highest counties is like 7 or 8%. It's like some rural kind somewhere. Well, we were going to discharge this. I wasn't, but the medical system was going to discharge this patient with some very dangerous medications. So, if you take the time to respect your clients, try to get somebody who speaks their language to have a communication, and I would say that's a good start in any situation. Whether they be Latino, whether they speak Amharic, whether they speak Arabic, whether they speak Vietnamese, Cantonese, Mandarin, whatever. Communication, it starts with communication, and it starts with the time that you take to talk with your patients and get a good experience. Don't try to wing it. It's not fair to the client, it's dangerous for your patients / clients.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much. So medical students and, is it nursing also at Ashika or is it mostly medical?
It's medical.
Medical will be our partners at Casa Latina, hopefully this weekend and time to come so we can work together with them soon and so thank you so much for coming and seeing the program.
Sorry, what do you tell people when they tell you they're worried about going to the hospital because like you've been hearing it before?
So, funny story. So in some states, you can Google this too, undocumented people were being flown intubated from the ICUs back to Mexico because the states didn't want to pay for their care. In Arizona, I think there was case reports of ER staff actually calling immigration on Latinos who they found out were undocumented. So, what can I tell them?
Is it legal? Like, are
It
you
is-
allowed to do that?
Well, the thing is that in medicine, as a culture, it is illegal. It is not our business to ask. That's not our business to ask about how they're going to pay. Secondly, if you live in a sanctuary city, like Seattle, for example, our police department isn't required to call immigration if somebody is undocumented. So there's even like further progressiveness to this issue. But what do I tell my clients that are like, I'm not want to go because I want to get deported? I'm gonna tell them I feel you. Like, you have to validate their concerns because that's their concern, that's their story, that's their whatever. You know, I mean, I can say it's cool because I've woken up every day not being afraid of somebody coming through my door, or coming home and not finding my parents home. I know they'll be there. You just gotta say I understand, and that's it, and say, you know what? I'll go with you, or we need to find somebody to give you some reassurance, so that's not gonna happen. All it takes is one person to mess it up, and nobody's gonna go. If you tell, for example, for us, we believe, there's a common belief that if you get scared one day, like a huge scare, you'll become diabetic. And it's kind of true because your blood sugar goes up because of your sympathetic response. However, for Latinos, it's like, me asusté, like I got scared one day and I became diabetic forever. And it's kind of funny, right? And it is kind of funny, but that's what we believe. And so if you're a provider and you dismiss that like you're an idiot, why would you ever think that? Well, guess what that person's gonna do? Get on the phone and be like, so and so and so and so, we think we're idiots, blah, blah, blah. And nobody comes to it. And nobody's gonna come to me. All it takes is one person to mess it up.
Thanks, Juan. Thanks for the insight. We actually have another speaker today. We got Raul Garcia coming today from Casa Latina. He's a coordinator there, and he's just going to give us some briefings on the program there.
Okay, so my name is Raul. I'm actually a PhD, doctoral candidate in the Department of Anthropology here at UW. And Casa Latina, where you guys are going, is actually my dissertation site. So they asked me to come down and just talk a little bit about I won't tell you what my research is. it's not related to health, so you guys will be bored. What I really do, but part of it's kind of related to what Juan was talking about in relations to culture. Since if you don't know, anthropology is the study of culture and people, and that's what we focus on. Here's a quick question. Do you guys know what a day worker is? Yes? Okay, so I just wanted to ask that just in case you didn't know. So, and in case you didn't know, or kind of embarrassed a little bit to say you don't know, a day worker is basically just someone, a person, or who goes out to look for work on a daily basis, who doesn't have obviously a stable job, and usually this work includes doing things, yard work, construction work, or painting. And so what Casa Latina is a day worker center, and a day worker center in comparison to, say, a corner like a Home Depot. If you've gone by Home Depot, the people waiting for their day workers, right? And the difference between, say, a corner and the center is that the center has, at least Casa Latina has, a set of rules of what's needed to be a participant there and to look for work. In the street corners, usually a car will drive by and people will just jump to 20 people go to a car and say that they're ready to go to work. In contrast to Casa Latina, it's a much more complicated system, a much fairer system where we'll have employers call into the center and they have a daily list where they have a lottery and their names are put on a list, and according to their skill set, they go out to work. And basically that's what one portion of what Casa Latina is that. So the main participants, the community of Casa Latina, the majority are Latino day workers well, obviously that live here in Seattle. But actually, some of them, there's actually a large number that actually don't live in Seattle. They actually live in South King County. So we have a lot of participants. In order to participate for the daily lottery at Casa Latina, they have to be there before 7 a.m. So a lot of these, the workers who aren't, I think one of the questions asked me about the homeless individuals, so at least the ones that aren't homeless, they actually have to get on a bus around 5:30 in order to get there on time at Casa Latina. So that's kind of just a brief explanation of what Casa Latina does. They also do other things. They have, they provide English classes, and they also do things like wage staff prevention, or the kind of services that Casa Latina provides. And Casa Latina actually started in 1994, so actually this past year was their 20th anniversary as an organization, providing service for Latino day workers here in the Seattle area. Something that was needed when they started here when they came. So let me go back about the history of Casa Latina, actually. Why it emerged and why they became more day workers here in Seattle. So about 1990, we had a large demographic shift of population. What happened in 1990 is that the Latino population in the urban centers, specifically in Western Washington, outgrew that of Eastern Washington. So since 1990, there's been a larger population of Latinos in Washington since 1990. So where these workers were going, instead of working in the fields like they were previously, they started working in the construction area. Obviously, as we know, Seattle and a lot of these areas have grown exceptionally exponentially since, but before, but since 1990, there's been a large growth. And so there's been, I don't want to say any, but opportunities for work to occur here in Seattle. And so by 1994, there was a lot of, day workers, Latino day workers, who, didn't have a place where they could organize themselves, protect themselves from employers who didn't pay their wages, or they didn't feel were being paid the correct wage, their value of their labor were being represented. So Casa Latina came along kind of with this emergence of a larger Latino population in the western state, or especially in the urban centers areas in Seattle. So that's kind of the history of what happened, or the creation of Casa Latina, and the reasoning behind that creation. So it's been there since 1994, and it's moved from different locations. Actually, it's much larger than it is before. Before it was, I started as a volunteer at Casa Latina around 98. No, that's not true. 2008. Sorry, I wasn't ignorant. So around 2008, I started as a volunteer, and they used to be located in Belltown, in this very small kind of trailer park thing that they had in a parking lot. And the workers actually, before, they should just hang out outside. There wasn't really any cover. They had a little house, but basically, if it was raining, they had to stay out in the cold. Actually that same year, they bought a new building where you guys will be going on 17th and Jackson, and that's where the new center is. And so they went from that little trailer to like this large building where they're actually more during the winter, especially right now when there's not that much work, and obviously it's raining a lot. They have at least some type of cover. Let me see. I'm just looking at this checklist for that I was given by questions. So going out with some of the questions I have here about the kind of the healthcare needs. I really like. I didn't read the description of the class, but it sounds that this class should deal with looking at different type of communities and how you could interact with them. Yeah, I have to say that's really great. One of my committee members and a person that I TA'd, or a class that I TA'd multiple times. I don't know if you guys has anyone ever had the chance to take medical anthropology, global health here, 210? Yeah. Anyways, it's a great class if you ever have a chance to take. And in that class, we actually focus on this very issue, is that many people in the health field fail to look at culture and understand the culture in the communities where they're serving. And in this class, we kind of go into that of understanding why certain communities don't access healthcare, and understanding these communities and understanding their cultural history and social background, the social structures, into why they either seek help or don't seek help. And so I think this is really great thing that you guys are doing to try and understand this, to understand these communities. And I was saying it's very important to understand what a day worker is, especially a Latino day worker is. Like I was saying, so these are people who work daily. And so if they don't find work daily, right, they have to find work somehow during the week. And that's where seeking health, seeking healthcare, any type, either either in dentistry or any other type, becomes difficult. As Juan was saying, if they don't if people can go out to work, they're not going to take time to get care. And these things you see often at Casa Latina. It's very common that they'll seek care. We'll have workers who'll seek care. They'll come from Harborview, like the medical students might take them there. They'll have like a broken foot, but they'll come back and their cast is stopped. Like, what happened to your cast? And he's like, well, I can't work with this cast, right? And so they take it off, right? And so these are the issues that affect these workers. The same that they don't have time to seek care, because obviously if they can't go out to work, they're not going to have the necessity to help themselves as well as their families, which many of them do there. So one of the questions I asked, do they need dental care? Yeah, I think a lot of them do. A lot of they have a lot of more like self-care. So on a daily basis, they'll come in and they'll ask for Tylenol or ibuprofen for whatever ailment they have, and that's a type of self-care that they provide for themselves. And obviously other types of self-care that they also provide for themselves, which also creates larger health risks for themselves. But yeah, so I think what you guys will be doing out there tomorrow and Saturday is greatly needed in this community, especially teeth-wise. Because I know a lot of them can't seek care, so they do have to go. It's actually too expensive for them as well. So I know people are. I don't want to say excited, but they're kind of wanting this type of care. And some of the questions that I have here. See, besides that, it says the clients need oral hygiene supplies. I think they do. Are you guys going to supply some? Oh yeah, I think I know for sure that even though they'll have obviously some hygiene problems, I know for a fact that many of you do try to treat their teeth as much as possible, because in the morning when they get there, since a lot of these are homeless people, they do the first thing they go to is the restroom, and that's to clean their teeth. So I know a lot of them do have they bring their toothbrushes and toothpaste and are using the restrooms as a place to clean their teeth. Let's see. And besides that, I don't know. Do you have any other questions? That's kind of just a basic overview. I didn't tell you what I really do there, but just some of the information of what Casa Latina is and the needs of that community there. Yeah.
How many day workers do you see on a daily basis, and how many members do you see annually that are pretty consistent?
Okay, yeah, so right now, so the thing to know about Casa Latina is that it's by season. So right now it's kind of the low season, at least for work during the winter. There's not that much work. So right now I know we average around 59 to 60 individual workers, both men and women, who register for looking for work. Once spring starts and there's more work, we're looking at 80 to 100 people that come in. And the interesting thing too is that right now people are more inclined to look for care because there's not that much work. So it's people are they'll be like, oh, I could lose a day or two of work because there's a great possibility that there's not work for the week. There'll be maybe one job a week. in comparison to springtime when, you know, they'll have jobs, you know, almost every day, probably 7 days, almost every day of the week. And that's when it becomes more difficult for them to miss a day, since that's where they'll get most of their money for the years between April and September. And on average, there's about 600 individual day workers that come in now.
I was wondering,
Yeah, just a quick question. I don't know if people who come in each day, do all of them the same jobs today, or if there's some who don't?
No, they don't.
Or like what's the number?
So like I said, it depends. Right now, during the winter time, there's some days that don't go out. It's rare, but I want to say around probably 5 jobs a day.
5?
Jobs. So out of the 50 that register, 5 people go out to work. Some people that register also have their own employers, and they just come into. So one of the things we talk about is creating community, and so being part of Casa Latina, they create their own community, and so some of them just go and talk to their friends, even though they have work, they'll just come and register. But we don't know how many of those that just come in and talk actually do have work, but usually about 5, 10. And then, but once, like I said, the high season comes in between spring and September, it's very usual to see about 20 to 30 people go out to work. And so we have a high percentage of people that go out to work. I want to say 80, sometimes we even work black workers.
I'm just gonna ask, is there Tricky and is there too?
Let me see. I can't think of any of them right now.
Okay.
But we do. I know for certain we have. There is a Mayan, and the thing about Casa Latina that's I think different is that you really do have a mixture of different communities. So it's not. So you could have actually. I think there's some Mixtecos, Mayan, and I'm missing the name. There's some Afro Latino ones as well, and they speak their own language as well there. So you have different types of cultures and languages there as well. Oh yes. Yeah, it is open for anyone. So even though it's called Casa Latina, we've had people, African Americans who come there, and we've also had Asian immigrants who come there, other different people, African immigrants as well that come to that center. There's not a large amount, but there are some that do come. It's just that's the one thing about Casa Latina, and what my research is based on, is that it's wage-wise, it's the highest in the country, and it's so well recognized that people know that if they go there, they'll get work. And so people from all over do come to the center.
Here, you want to make an announcement?
Yeah, here, well,
One second, Dr. Mayor, I have one thing to announce.
yeah, David, come on up here. We have some good news. We actually, David and Keegan, David primarily put in the application together. We worked together to submit the work of you guys all under leadership of our student leaders for our health and homelessness course, for our work at UGM, for our work with Teeth and Toes, and also the Northwest Career and Technical Academy, and the UW Health and Homelessness team won. So we are getting national recognition as a student-led community outreach activity, And so there's a small cash prize, but that is not the main part of it. It's going to be featured in ADA News, and the UW dental students for their work in the community are going to be recognized. And so I want to commend first of all David, who started health insurance class, and Keegan and Rika and other student leaders. There's a lot amongst you, and we're growing. And it's really an honor for us. So I thank David for doing that. And yeah, we're going to be famous